So, gives me great pleasure. I've known Paul a little while now. Paul Watson is one of the organisers of the CONIFA tournament, which is taking place in and around London from 31st of May to the 9th of June. I'll let him explain, I won't steal his thunder, and I'll let him explain exactly what the Unrecognised Nations World Cup actually is. But Paul, some of you may know, some of you may have read Paul's book, which was, I think, one of the funniest books written about football that's been published in the last 7-8 years, which was called Up and Pay, which Paul was basically with a friend one evening. I'm not sure whether they were maybe a little bit over-refreshed. No, you weren't, okay. They decided that it was about time that they became international footballers, and the only way that they could do that, they thought, was to sign up and play for an island out in Micronesia, which is somewhere towards Papua New Guinea. And the island that they pitched up on and actually ended up coaching the national team of was called Pohnpei, hence the name of the book, Up and Pay. I do advise you to read it. It is, as I say, very, very funny. I think it probably has led to him being involved in the CONIFA organisation as well. So without further ado, I shall pass you to Paul and he can tell you more.
Thank you. That's a very nice introduction and slightly flattering. So, as I think Richard said, it's one of the best books of the last 6 or 7 years, specifically about funny things that happen when people go to weird islands to coach football, but one of the best of those books. So, I've been told that certain people need to leave around 4-ish, or at least to sort of get a warning that they're about to miss trains. So, I'll keep it relatively brief, and I will warn you when 4 o'clock sort of comes around. I won't take it personally if you do choose to just walk out. But just as a sort of warning again, I haven't timed this, so if I feel like it is going to run over, I will start to sound like a horse racing commentator. Whereas if I think it's more like if I think it's incredibly short, then I'll just start to really take the ball into the corner and just waste time with it and say the same word a few times until one of you lunges at me. And the only other caveat here is it will sound like I'm going on a very rambling speech that is headed nowhere. I don't think that's the case. It just has a slightly, there's no short way to really explain how I ended up being part of CONIFA and running our CONIFA World Football Cup, which is in London this summer. So if you take just one thing from this, Google CONIFA World Football Cup, and then basically that's my job done. You'll get a much less rambling, much less caffeinated version of what I'm about to tell you. So, my story starts with the glory and the glamour of the Anglo-Italian Cup, and again against Oxford United, as you'd expect. I was a Bristol City fan, 7 or 8 years old roughly, and that was one of the first games I got taken to. Probably because it was a dead rubber match. We'd already lost to Portsmouth, so we were out of the Anglo-Italian Cup before we had crossed the channel in any respect. I never actually saw a Bristol City team make it across the channel for the Anglo-Italian Cup. I'm not totally convinced those games ever happened. They don't make any sense when you think about it. So at this game, I was about 7 or 8 years old, and you know, looking around the pitch and thinking, this is fantastic. You know, this is about as good as it gets. Despite the fact that, you know, as I say, we were winning 2-1, but out of the Anglo-Italian Cup before we ever got to play Pistoiese or Lucchese. I'm looking at these players and thinking, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a footballer. Sadly, by the age of 7, the die was already cast. I'd been a goalkeeper from the age that I could walk. My brother basically kicked ball at me, and that was it. I was a goalkeeper from then on. So by about the age of 8, I was already significantly far behind the rest of the players out of field. I never grew over this height, and I don't think anyone's ever been a successful goalkeeper at this height. So really, it was fate that cost me, rather than the fact that I had no discernible natural talent whatsoever. Now that might be a very sweet story that at the age of 7, I was looking around these sort of largely hungover Bristol City players playing in a competition that no one could understand, and thinking I want to be one of them. It's less sweet when you flash forward to me being 25 years old, working for Football Italia on their website as a journalist, but still, even at that age, believing that I was going to make it somehow, by some sort of miracle, into the league. And so sort of ploughing my way through 7th, 8th tier reserve teams around London, I would basically have the same pre-season every year that I would look like a pretty decent player until the footballs came out. I had sort of remedied my lack of natural talent by always being the fittest player in the team, which actually wasn't particularly difficult for a lot of these teams. So for the first few weeks when they were going through bleep tests, I would look pretty good, and the coach would get really excited by the prospect of this winger. Then the balls would come out, and quite quickly I'd become sort of a sub, and then they didn't necessarily need me, and then a sub again, and then actually I would sort of get gently let go. This happened enough times that one coach took me to one side and very gently said, "It's not going to work out for you here." I said, "No, fair enough, I've heard this speech before." And he said, "I don't really know how to say it, but how old are you now?" And I said, "Well, I'm 25. And he said, "Have you ever heard of a 25-year-old come through?" And I said, "Yeah, there's been loads. These players come from nowhere." And I named sort of a string of players who had come out of obscurity, the Jamie Vardys of this world. And he sort of looked at me and said, "Yeah, but all of them were really good at football, mate." So really, what we decided to do, me and my flatmate at the time, Matt, who was also of the impression that he would play for England, but he'd sort of got one step ahead of me and never actually played for anyone. He just sort of sat there on the sofa and waited for me to come home and then ran me through everything that was wrong with my game. He would then sort of crow about how he decided which is the best team in Belgium according to kit. So we had this kind of relationship where I was out trying, he wasn't trying, didn't make much difference. And we decided that, it was a hard chat to have, but even under Steve McLaren, that England regime, we were way out. We were on the fringes there, we weren't likely to break in. So what we did was we gracefully decided to find the lowest ranked team in the FIFA rankings. We would naturalise to play for them, which would seem fairly easy. Vinnie Jones played for Wales, so it can't be too hard. And then we would naturalise and we would get our caps, and we'd finally get this chance that we deserved to play international football. So we went down the rankings, and with the trusty source of Wikipedia would tell us who all the players played for. The problem that we had was all the players played for decent teams, or at least one player would play for an English league team. So it's quite clear we weren't really going to get into that team. We would go down and down and down the rankings until we reached Montserrat, who were at the bottom at the time. And we thought we had a pretty decent chance with Montserrat. And then we saw Rule Fox was in the lineup still. I think it was about 74, but Rule Fox was on the way. And I just suspected that Rule Fox would have sniffed us out quite early on. So we were pretty dispirited until we found there was such a thing as non-FIFA football. Now, non-FIFA football, something that almost nobody knows about. And back then, even fewer people knew about it because very little was happening. So we found, again, on the trusty source of Wikipedia, a list of teams not affiliated with FIFA. We scrolled down to that list, and again, a lot of these teams were too good for us. Greenland had, they didn't have, but they had Jesper Gronkia before he became Danish. And there were players like that around that had these affiliations with other teams and then had sort of moved into FIFA recognised teams. So we were getting really dispirited until we found Pompeii. As Richard said, a tiny, tiny Pacific island, so small that Google Maps doesn't even bother to put it on there. And we looked and saw that they'd never won a game. There was a sentence on Wikipedia, they had never won a game and are widely regarded as the worst team in the world. We looked at the last result, they'd lost 16-1 to Guam in the derby. The big derby, of course. I imagine most of you probably watched at least highlights of that. But so we thought, if not anywhere else, here, this is where we were supposed to be playing, And so we did what anyone would do really, which is click through a few Wikipedia links, see that it's the third wettest place on earth and think, how big can that be? I'd played in Penrith once, I made a football in Penrith, and I thought, third wettest, the third of anything's never that bad. And so we sent over an email, and we were quite cagey. We said, we're just interested in football in Micronesia. We didn't want to overwhelm them perhaps with our interest. And that was it. We'd done it, and we could go about our normal lives. It's worth noting we were totally sober at this stage, and I'd love to pretend we weren't, but this was a completely sober chain of events. About a week later, there was a job because we got a reply, which was something we hadn't ever factored in. The reply was from a Charles Musana, a Ugandan guy who had gone to Micronesia accidentally, as everyone does, believing it to be Polynesia, which is still pretty remote, but less remote. And he said, well, I'd love to help you, but I've just moved to London, so I don't know what use I can be. At which point we were pretty sure it was a prank. But we said, yeah, we'll meet up with you, we're in London. And so we had this incredibly strange meeting that was effectively a Mexican standoff of sorts, where we would say, well, this is a joke, isn't it? And he'd say, this is a joke, isn't it? Because he couldn't quite believe two people in London really cared about football in Micronesia. We were pretty sure it was our mates having a laugh with us. But eventually this conversation emerged where he said, well, there was a football programme. It disbanded after the 16-1 reverse against Guam. It was very hard to spin that. The player ratings were really quite brutal, I think, in the local press. He did also say that actually they looked very much the better side for long periods of time. They genuinely did. He said, heads went down when they went 11-1 down. And he said, well, you can't play for them. He said, I don't know how much you've done in terms of research on naturalisation for Micronesia. There are a few things you might not want to do. And he said, initially, you'll have to learn the language, at which point a smug sort of look emerged on our faces. We'll do that, pick up a bit of Spanish when I go on holiday there sometimes, it'll be fine. He said, yeah, no, that's probably the easiest one. The other one is you'll have to marry a local woman. Now, I had a long-term relationship, that was going to be a tough conversation for later. Matt was fully on board. The next one, though, was renouncing British citizenship. Now, at this stage, I have to admit, there were certainly some doubts. So Musana saw the look on our face and said, of course, if you wanted to go and coach the team and set up football infrastructure there and rebuild, well, you'd be the coach. You'd be the, as it were at the time, the Steve McLaren of Pompeii. Now, he didn't know what a grievous insult that was. So after I pulled that back physically, he realised it was actually a nice thing to say. And Charles Musana laughed a little, so looked at us and went, So on the plane, now 26 hours is a long time to fly somewhere you don't know, and we have no coaching experience. But Musana had assured us, he came with us, so we did think it was probably just a way to get a free holiday. But Musana basically said the whole football community is going to come out. It's going to be this amazing celebration. So we flew, to Dubai to Manila to Guam, and Guam to Chuk to Pompeii, which is the easiest way, 26 hours. And we got there, and we got to the pitch, which was flooded and covered in toads. And there was one goal net. But worse than that, there was one player. 2 hours later, there were 4 players. 3 hours after that, we had just about enough for a game of Wembley doubles. Now, that was discouraging, I must admit. At that point, I started to wonder whether this was sort of the fast track to the glory that we had envisaged. But what we did see was that the players that were playing had this sort of odd form of football, which was somewhere between wrestling and football. Flying tackles with your knee into someone's head were quite normal, but equally, to balance it out, flying tackles with your head in someone's knee was also completely normal. So we watched this kind of brutal spectacle, well, we played in this brutal spectacle, and then the rain stopped us because it rained like nothing I'd ever seen. And some of the players said, well, it's the third nicest place in the world. And we looked at each other and thought, oh yeah, no, I guess it was, wasn't it? And that was our first introduction to football there. And I won't talk through every day like that because we'd be here until, I guess, sort of about 9 months. But what we'd effectively seen is that football had disbanded. And the presence of 2 drugs, 2 intoxicating substances that were very common to the islanders, sakau, which is like a carve, a drink like they have in Fiji, and betel nut, which is a chew very common in Southeast Asia, were prevalent. Players were largely under the influence of these 2 drugs, which made them very sluggish, sleepy, and also really fearless into tackles. So after this first experience, it looked like this was just going to be a sort of anecdote, a dinner party anecdote, rather than an anecdote you'd have at a supporters direct forum sort of many years later. in a very rambling fashion. But the next day we met a guy called Dilshan. Now Dilshan was Sri Lankan, who had left during the Civil War with his family, and he said to us, look, you haven't really seen how many good players there are. There's loads of players, everyone wants to play. The problem is, there's no funding for football. We're not in FIFA, we can't get into FIFA. And so nobody really organises anything. And after the slight disappointment we get to Guam, there's this sense that what's the point, you know, who are we going to play? It's about 4.5-hour flight to Guam, and that was a hell of a beating. So basically, what we did was what any great sports organiser would have done. We got very drunk with Dilshan, and we proposed the first ever Pompey Premier League. Now that was quite a grand title, and I'm pretty sure we weren't actually allowed to use that term. Probably get sued for that at some point. But what we did is we went around the island and we gathered teams from different community groups, and we said to them, come and play. This is the time that we play at. We can teach you the rules. We can lend you the kit. And that's what we did. We formed a league, and it involved the first ever occasion of someone cold calling a Mormon hut, which was pretty hilarious. So the island has got lots of different religious groups, missionary groups. The Mormons are the most prevalent, and the Mormons will try a drive-by conversion at any time. So a bike will go past you, someone will just say, is it a good time to talk about God's love? And you just sort of, no, not really, I'm just going to the supermarket or something. But basically, the island's got lots of religious groups. What we did was we had each of them form a team, and they would sort of hack it out over the field. But we also had a university team, we had like an old guards team that were the people who lost 16-1 to Guam. Interestingly, none of them had any accurate memory of that game. All of them had different reasons for it, or some of them, in fact most of them swore blind, it wasn't 16. Who knows? But basically, we built the league. We spent about 6 hours in the blazing sunshine painting this pitch out. We put fishermen's nets up, and we painted the pitch by hand with brushes. We paint that was someone's house paint, so it was sort of pink, because the houses are quite brightly coloured there. It washed away the next day, because it rains lots. But you know, that was what we did. We sort of crafted a football program. And it gained momentum. People started to really get behind it. People would come out and watch their relatives. They'd mostly come out motivated by the possibility to take the piss out of each other, which actually meant a load of people would come out for each game to take the piss out of their mate, and then likewise and likewise and likewise. And it became quite a big thing on the island. We brought over a load of kit, and we'd asked basically every club in England via a series of emails that got ignored, could you donate some shirts for this project? We had no idea about the way that works, because we were idiots, but basically everyone told us no, except for Yeovil. So we gave out just Yeovil Town shirts everywhere. And if you walk around Pompeii now, you will often see a Yeovil Town shirt, and also a pair of shin pads just being worn for leisure. It turned out we didn't really need shin pads or socks, but you know, how do you know that? So what we did is we built this league, and it came to a climax at the final game of the league. And we had been playing later in the day because of the heat, which is pretty impressive. And we had one floodlight that was really trusty, and it blew. So what we had to do was get all the cars around the edge of the pitch and shine the headlights, and that was how we finished our league season. And that was sort of the level of facilities we had. But then we went, basically the question kept coming up, how are we going to go after Guam? You know, when are we going to play Guam? And most of them had things planned for when we beat Guam. At this stage, I wasn't 100% sure we would beat Guam, I'll be honest with you. But it really encouraged people to come out and play. You know, people who would, you know, our guy Roger, whose family make the intoxicating drink Sakao, he would walk 5 miles barefoot to come and train with us. So when we, at the start, like the idiots we were, would moan at him about being late, he was incredibly humble and said, yeah, I'm so sorry, coach. One day we said, well, can we drop you home? And we realised he lived pretty much, yeah, it was the length of the island. But more than that, there are dogs everywhere. So you basically walk, if you walk at night, you have to run really fast to avoid the dogs. So we kind of got this insight into how misguided we'd been creating this team and how dedicated they were. Denson, one of our sort of star centre-backs, was a taxi driver. So he would drive to the field, park up and come and play. But often we'd see there was someone in the taxi looking sort of surly. I mean, he would genuinely, his fare would wait there. It helped that Benton was a really scary guy, so you just got the impression that people just had to accept it. But there was a lovely atmosphere, except for the sort of sad person late for work. So this is where the story sort of starts to make a little more sense. I naively assumed at this point that I would get in touch with FIFA, and FIFA would say, this is great, you know, we develop football everywhere, because they do sort of say that quite a lot. So I penned what was a pretty brash and idiotic email to what I thought would be the right email address, and said, you know, this is what we're doing, it's just a very humble football development program, but, you know, with your help, we could achieve a lot. Sent that to OCI Football Confederation, and again, didn't expect a reply necessarily, but got one. I got a reply that said, due to the wrong protocol, you will not receive a reply for your email. Now I sat there for some time, and I sat there for an awful lot of time, and I thought, did I reply? And just say, technically, that was a reply. But I realised I probably had set back development in that part for maybe decades, so I didn't, I bit my tongue. And we realised it's because we didn't have official committees, we didn't have a Secretary General and a President and all this stuff. So we set that all up. We followed effectively templates from other football associations that were functioning, and we created all these things. We created committees that effectively was two or three of us sat around at a bar by the sea saying, oh, we're going to have some football tonight. Yeah, agreed, minute made, football tonight. But it was a committee, and they couldn't hold that against us. The real breakthrough came, I thought, when I found out the Skype address of a very key person at the Oceania Football Confederation. Now, they do not give contact details out lightly. So I managed to get his Skype details. I can't say exactly how. You probably covered some of that in the data protection thing. But basically, I Skyped him. He didn't answer. I Skyped him. He didn't answer. This carried on for about 3 weeks. I would do it twice a day, morning and evening. And then he did answer one day. I thought, this is huge. And he said, look mate, I'm really sorry. And I said, wow, this is amazing. But we'll get you in tomorrow. I never thought it would be as difficult as this, but we'll get you in tomorrow. I thought, what? This is amazing. I didn't expect that. So I said to him, well, thank you, but I really didn't expect you to work that quickly. He said, wait, this is Paul, right? I said, yeah, Paul. He said, wait, you sound different. I said, oh, what do you mean? He said, yeah, well, basically he mistaken me for his dog walker. But I still sort of took that as a win. So I tried to explain to him who I was. I said, no, I can walk your dogs if you want, but you're in sort of New Zealand. But if that's what it takes. And he hung up on me, and then he blocked me. And that was that route done, really. Interestingly, we did eventually get an official response from him, which was that we should go to the Asian Football Confederation instead, as Guam had done. And the reason for that basically is no money, or there's a limited fund in the OFC. But as a result, there are these whole host of island nations similar to Micronesia where they've been waiting for 15, 20 years for FIFA to make a stance, even to say no to them, but that just doesn't happen. I'm going to give you the warning now that it's about 4 o'clock, so I think we've almost got to the bit where it makes sense, so if anyone just needs to leave, don't stay and listen to the rest. But basically, this was what we realised, or I certainly realised, is that people don't really know that there's a need for non-FIFA football because they probably assume that if you want to be in FIFA and you're a sovereign nation, you'll get in. The truth is that there's no FIFA to do that. I know, okay, it's an NGO, technically, but actually the reality is that confederations have a limited pot of money and they have a certain number of members. So by allowing members in that don't have massive economic interests, they're just splitting that pot into a sort of a smaller amount for each person. So you have Tuvalu, you have Kiribati, you have Micronesia, which is where Pohnpei is, you have Niue, you have Nauru. You have all these places where, a bit like us, although maybe not as moronically, a football project starts, someone drives it, usually an islander, but sometimes someone comes in from abroad, drives a football program, gets it to a certain point, they start to make these inroads into FIFA via OFC. They then get derailed by the fact that they can't quite work out even who to contact, how to do it. It's a complete maze. There's no series of like rules or regulations. You just have to send them repeated documents and they get kicked back and they arrange site visits and they don't turn up. And eventually people leave, or even, people leave or basically get discouraged. And then that's it, football collapses again. And that is exactly what happened in Pohnpei. wasn't that they'd lost to one, it was more that nobody could ever get through to the football's governing bodies to even generate, say, £10,000 worth of sponsorship, which would have changed the entire complexity of football in the region for years. 10,000 is basically what I personally spent. Actually, sort of HSBC loaned me that, but still paying for that one. But this what I did find is that within this world, there's a very interesting community. So you get people from, say, Greenland, Zanzibar, even the Vatican, people talking to each other and saying, how's stuff going with you? It's kind of a solidarity thing. We're all outside of FIFA. How are you finding things? The best story that I heard in the Vatican was a priest who played for one of the league teams in the Vatican. And the Vatican Championship actually gets pretty nasty sometimes. He said that he was playing against the Swiss Guards team, who are notoriously difficult. And the Swiss Guards team basically are foulers. So he was getting a lot of stick from someone, and he decked one of their players. And the referee came over and just said, I've got to send you off now. Why would you possibly do that? And the referee said, you're a man of God. Why would you do this? And so the priest looked over at the Swiss guard who was doing a whole lot of sort of gesticulation. He said, this man's supposed to protect the Pope, for God's sake. As I say, so that's an aside. But basically, at the time I was in Pompeii, there was an organisation that was the non-FIFA organisation that was before CONIFA. It was called the NF Board, the Nouvelle Fédération Board. I don't speak French, so I have no idea what that means, but I think it's like the New Federation Board. And while FIFA had sort of messed us around with applications, in total we'd filed about 150 pages worth of documents to FIFA at this stage, with no result. The NF Board, which represented non-FIFA nations at the time, had a 2-page A4 form, and half of that was colouring in your kit. So I broke out the crayons, drew us a little beauty of a kit, and sent it off. Never heard anything back. Never heard anything back from them. Only years later did I realise that the letter posted from Pompeii took 4 years to arrive, by which point the organisation had disbanded. It disbanded in a kind of weird Belgian coup. They all started hating each other, and within this non-FIFA community, it just imploded at an AGM, which just sounds brilliant. It just sounds like everyone was yelling at each other in sort of balloon. It just sounds ideal stuff. But basically, non-FIFA football fell apart. But on the site was a guy called Sasha, a German student, chain-smoking German student, and a shirt collector. He collected every shirt in the world, and then he started going for non-FIFA ones, because it was too easy to get all the FIFA ones. And a guy called Per Anders, who is sort of a big Laplander guy, who genuinely he herds reindeer just for fun. That's the kind of man we're talking about. It's just a normal thing to him. So these two guys were sat there watching this Walloon battle. And basically, they both said, well, let's reform an organisation. Sasha had all the contact details for buying shirts from them. Per Anders had been a referee in the CONIFA world, non-FIFA world, so they formed CONIFA. Now, that basically is how you get to the Confederation of Independent Football Associations, CONIFA. Now that's our current organisation. That formed in 2013. And basically, the whole point of it is that it's a place where people can go if they're not allowed into FIFA's framework. So it's a more flexible approach to identity. We always say that we don't tell you your identity. FIFA tells you your identity, we ask you your identity. And that is essentially the difference. If you are Tibetan, under FIFA's rules you play for China. If you're Catalan, you play for Spain. We feel there needs to be, for the modern world, a more sort of, I guess a more flexible, but a more modern thinking way of looking at identity. People are more complex than just saying, you were born here, you play for this nation. And what we provide is a way for people to just express identity through football, which surely is essentially the whole point of football, in many regards. The German FA disagrees. They regard the German FA as a term for what we do, and they call it wild football. It's just brilliant, really. It sums it up. It sums up the attitude of basically the FIFA world to what we do. It's seen as somehow unsavoury. It's like we're sort of playing in like darkened rooms with smoke, and we're playing like backroom poker games or something. FIFA, has this way of making out that anyone who isn't within their fold is in some way dangerous, divisive, or crazy. our view is that FIFA doesn't own football. It's kind of funny to look at that now because we've become so used to the fact that FIFA has this massive hold on everything that it is just an NGO. It's an NGO that helps administer football, and yet it controls every single facet, whether that's all the way through the brands, people having certain brands they work with. Everything you see is so carefully managed that actually it's moved away from what it was supposed to do, which is encourage football to be played by normal people. It really doesn't do that now. We on the other hand at Khalifa, we have a lot of freedom because we don't have any money, which is great and terrible. But we have no money, we have no brands, we don't have official gaming partners, we don't have any of that crap. And all this stuff that you see when you see big clubs now, Liverpool unveiling their official grooming partner, if you listen closely enough, you can hear the death of football in that. But it all comes from the same thing. It all comes from one monopoly controlling sport and wringing the money out of it like it's lifeblood. So Khalifa, okay, we're not well known, but our last tournament in Abkhazia, which is a disputed region between Russia and Georgia in 2016, you could see that for these 16 teams, it meant more than anything to be able to even express their identities through football. They were often identities that had been denied, they were forbidden. So when Abkhazia, their hosts, beat Punjab on penalties in the final, completely legitimately, and there was a pitch invasion, and then the president declared a national holiday, that's when we know that this is football that really, really means something. And that's our World Football Cup, sorry that I'm talking about that, because if we were to refer to it as a World Cup, we could be sued by FIFA. That's what we've been advised. FIFA own the term World Cup now. So, from my point of view, I joined because I believe in what FIFA stands for, but I believe there's a battle going on at the moment, and I think that the battle lines are very clearly drawn between the big business interests and the way that football has changed. Now, I derided the Anglo-Italian Cup, but in a way, this was football at a much more honest, simple time, when people could organise a tournament so infeasibly stupid as that. A tournament that has absolutely no commercial potential or value. Second division teams from Italy playing against second division teams from England over 2 legs in midweek. You wouldn't get that through now. But in a way, it saddens me that you wouldn't. It shows that everything has to be commercially driven. So, with Khalifa, we're in a way trying to get back to a simpler age of football. We see ourselves as sort of the grassroots FIFA. We're all about participation, we're all volunteers, none of us have ever commanded a salary, we don't have intentions of doing that. And also, we have a membership system, so normal people can join our board. They're on our board for a year, it's an annual subscription, and they can vote in all our AGMs on any of our issues. And we're completely transparent. It's easy to be transparent. You have no money and you're not corrupt. And I think that's the crazy thing about how untransparent people are, is that you sort of realise that really, if you've got nothing to hide, transparency isn't that difficult to achieve. People can look through our accounts and see that we're broke, but we're doing our best. And likewise, when we make decisions, we get them wrong sometimes. And we'll say, yeah, we got that wrong. And people are always astonished, because again, if you ever manage to hear one of the big sort of commercial bodies say, oh, we just made a mistake there. No, it's always cloaked in lots of different things, but we make mistakes, we're normal people, and we're just football fans who want to see other people have the enjoyment of football. So I'm going to wind down now, and it's basically the point of my speech now, which sort of crammed into about half an A4 out of 5 A4. Basically, we're having this London World Cup, and the reason we're having it in London is because a lot of our teams are actually diaspora teams who represent other regions, but are doing so from London. So technically our hosts are Barawa. Now Barawa is a sort of semi-autonomous city-state in Somalia. It also has been controlled by Al-Shabaab, a terrorist group, but also then reclaimed. Now football there is a massive tool for allowing young people to have a nice way to express themselves. It's basically an anti-terrorism sport. And that's the kind of project that doesn't fit within FIFA's framework. They would have to go through the Somalian FA, which I wouldn't advise. But also, it's a grassroots program for their region, and it's helping people through sport. But it's again seen as a challenge to the FIFA hierarchy, so they won't be able to go through that route. And I think it's projects like that that are really humbling, because you sort of see that what we stand for, it may be funny and I may make light of it, but in a lot of ways, really, football has this incredible power to do good. And okay, sure, there are ways to do that through the FIFA framework, but a lot of people are isolated, a lot of people are cut out, and what that makes them feel when their identity isn't recognised is very powerful. It undermines people, it makes people feel that the world's against them. And what we're trying to do is the opposite. We're trying to bring people to London and say to them, your identity does matter. You know, here you are. We don't say that we vouch for any of it, so Tibet are coming. In fact, Tibet's players were blessed by the Dalai Lama last week. And Tibet's coming to our competition. Doesn't mean that we're going to shout free Tibet from the rooftops. All we're saying is that this group of players feel that they are Tibetan and they want to play under that banner, and we're going to let them do that. That alone has been enough to make 5 sponsors pull out of our tournament. that is the reality of it. We had four sponsors pull out directly. One sponsor said, we love what you do, love every aspect of it, we're really keen to get on board. Could you just kick Tibet out of the competition though? And it's at that point where you realise that it's very, very hard to stand up against the established system, because everyone has their interests, everyone has their potential business interests. So what we are, effectively, is we're idealists and we're broke, but I'd much rather be in that place than compromise on what we've got and end up being a sort of diluted version of FIFA. So what we've got in London coming up, we'd love normal fans to come down and watch the games. There are non-league grounds, 10 non-league grounds around London and the surrounds, between May the 31st and June the 9th. It's £10 a ticket, it's £5 for under-18s. And what we really want to do is celebrate not only our teams, but we also want to celebrate grassroots football. We want to celebrate the passion of football. We want to celebrate what makes football special, which is the fact that there's not going to be, you know, corporate sponsors, there's not going to be a mixed zone, there's not going to be all this kind of crap that has enveloped the sport and choked it from inside. This is just going to be a nice, pure football event for people who love football. And maybe you'll come and see a team like Tuvalu, who have travelled 9,000 miles to be here from very close to where Pompeii is, and their island is the first island that will disappear through global warming, and this is their last chance to compete on the international stage. Maybe you'll get Matabeleland, who come from Zimbabwe and have been persecuted for generations, who know that the driver of their minibus every time they go to training is in the secret police. Maybe you'll get Kabylia, who have the same problem, the Berber people from North Algeria. They played all their games in the middle of the night to avoid police scrutiny. As soon as they announced their qualification, the president of their FA was arrested and held without charge. Or the United Koreans in Japan. This is North and South Korean 5th generation who are not seen as legitimate citizens of Japan still. They live as a sort of underclass, but they're North and South Koreans playing together on the same team peacefully and happily. So maybe you'll get to see some football that you never would have thought you'd ever get to see, and like me, you might get to sort of experience some places that I'd never heard of even a year ago. But more than that, I think it's a nice way to say, you know, you don't have to boycott the World Cup in Russia, but I think there needs to be an alternative. And I think while there's not any alternative, what can we do? Monopolies are always dangerous. And I think, to be totally honest, fans deserve a little bit better. And so my final note is, even if you just want to come down and not pay £11.20 a pint, we can do that for you. And it won't be sort of Budweiser in that big sort of bottles that you have to pour yourself either. But you know, that's basically me. I'm going to leave it there because I've overrun by about 7 minutes, but still, that's not too bad, I think. And I'd love to see any of you who would like to come, and if anyone has any questions, please do let me know, or I'll just let you go about your daily lives. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Very, very interesting. What he didn't say is he didn't give the result of the game between Pompeii and Gual.
No, because I won't sell any books. I wrote a book about it.
Yeah. What you should do is you should buy Up Pompeii by Paul Watson, and in there will be revealed what happened in the rematch.
It's one of the best football comedy based books on a weird island of the last few years.
Amongst the best.
Amongst
Amongst the best.